astronomer friends, welcome back. We are on lesson 3 today, and we are going to talk about something really cool today. We're going to talk about stars. So let's talk about what we've learned so far in our astronomy lessons, okay? So last lesson we learned that the Earth has two ways it can move. It rotates or orbits, and then it revolves around the sun. Remember, if it's rotating, it's spinning, or orbiting, it's spinning on itself. And if it rotates, it goes around an object, okay? So remember, the Earth rotates when it spins on its axis. We just talked about that. And that spinning creates day and night. And then when we rotate around the sun, because we're a planet, we rotate around that sun, we get light and heat. And when we rotate around that sun one whole time, that's one whole year, okay? So today, though, we're going to read about stars. I'm so excited about this. And we already know what our most important star is to us. Do you remember? It's the sun. Remember, the sun is a star. And, you know, it's made up of a huge ball of gas, right? And gas is something that we can't see. It's hard to see. Sometimes we can see it, like if you're boiling water on the stove and you see it rising up. That's condensation or steam, and that's gas. That's a form of gas, okay? So, and you can also think of gas when you go like this. Air. Air is a form of gas, okay? It's not solid, doesn't hold its shape, can't pour it, it's not a liquid. Stars are made up of gas, okay? Even though we can't see that gas, they are. They're also kind of far, far away, so they look really tiny, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let's see, what else can we talk about? I think we're ready. I think we're ready. Here's what we're going to listen for today. We're going to learn about shooting stars also, but shooting stars aren't really stars at all. You have to listen and find out what a shooting star really is. So let me go ahead and share and get started. There and there. And let's talk about lesson 3, stars. First thing we do, vocabulary. Dusk, the time of day, just after sunset when the sky is not yet dark. In the summertime, my mom lets me play outside until dusk. Whoops, too far. Meteor, a rock that flies through space, sometimes mistakenly called a shooting star. If you look at the sky long enough, you may see a meteor. Stars, hot balls of gas that give off light and heat. Many stars are visible from Earth in the night sky. Telescopes, tube-like tools with lenses and mirrors used for magnifying objects in space. The boy used a telescope to look at the night sky. Universe, everything in space taken together, including plants, stars, and space. The universe is so big that I can't even imagine it. Okay, friends, now I'm going to switch to a different screen. Hold on just a second. Messed up. Hold on just a second, guys. Okay, I think I fixed it. Let's try it again. All right, now we're ready. All right, now we're on our right screen so you can look at the slides as I read our read aloud. So follow along and listen carefully because remember, you're going to have questions to answer at the end. When nighttime comes, you can say goodnight to the sun, our daytime star, and you can say hello to all the millions of other stars that shine in our outer space. Remember, those stars are hot balls of gas that give off light and heat. Remember, the stars are always out there. Outer space does not disappear during the day and then reappear at night. You can see those stars at night because the sun's light is no longer shining on your part of the Earth, but the stars are always there. At dusk, after the sun has set in the west, but before all of its light has faded, the first star of night appears. So in this image, it's dusk because the sun hasn't fully gone down. But see, you can see some of the stars that are starting to pop up. See them? One, two, three, and then more and more. The darker it is, the more stars you can see. If you live in the city, then you can't see as stars as people who live in the country can see. Lights in the cities brighten the night sky and make it difficult to see the stars. Out in the country, and especially out in the wilderness, far away from buildings, streetlights and cars, the night sky seems to explode with glittery, twinkling stars. So if you go outside and your back porch light's on, it might be harder for you to see the stars. But if you turn your back porch light off or your off and you look up, then it might be a little easier. So the darker it is, the better it is. Let's see if I can shrink this down. There we go. They may look small, but many of those stars that you see are actually incredibly large. Many stars are larger than our own sun, which, as you may remember, is big enough to fit 1,000,000 Earths inside. The stars look small because they're so far away. Everything looks smaller when it's far away. Think of an airplane. Airplane's really, really big, but if you look up at it in the sky, it looks teeny tiny because it's so far away. And the stars look like they're blinking, but they're actually shining steadily. The gases in the atmosphere cause their light to look like it's twinkling. So see how some of these look really, really big, and then some of them look itty bitty, teeny tiny. Just how far away are the stars? Here's one way to think about it. If someone put you on the fastest rocket ship today and launched you out into space, it would take you thousands of years, about 73,000 years to be exact, to reach the nearest star before our sun. Wow. So the closest star to us, not our sun, but the closest star to us is thousands of years away, not miles, but years. I don't know about you, but I think the oldest living person is like 117 years old. Could you imagine thousands of years to take to get to one place? It's pretty far. However, you can still see the light from that massive hot star, even though it looks more like a tiny twinkling diamond from here on Earth. At night, astronomers study the stars. Astronomers work in observatories, which are buildings where large telescopes are housed. Okay, so the telescope, we saw it in our vocabulary, it's a tube-like tool with lenses and mirrors, and they use it to make objects bigger. Now, this right here would open up, and a telescope would come out of it. Now, this telescope is very, very, very large. I'm sure you've seen one that's a little small. Some people get some that are small, and then there's some that are pretty big that people get. Pretty neat to look up in. Observatories are built high up on hills or mountaintops where there are no buildings or trees blocking the telescope. So this is an observatory. What do you hear when you say the word observatory? I hear the word observe, which means to look. So an observatory is a building to look at stars and space. The roof of the observatory is designed so it can open and allow the giant telescope inside to move up and down and all around without bumping into anything. So like I said, this opens up and the telescope comes out and it can move all around. See, there's that giant telescope, and here it is opening up right here. It's pretty big, isn't it? Astronomers need really big, powerful telescopes to do their work. This is the kind of telescope you find inside an observatory. That's a big telescope. I don't think I've ever been near one that big. This is the one I was talking about earlier. But you don't need a massive telescope and a fancy mountaintop observatory to enjoy the wonders of stargazing or looking at the stars. If you want to get a better look at the stars or a closer look at the moon, a pair of binoculars will do the trick. Binoculars, you can do that. Or you could use a telescope like this. You be surprised by all the different things you see through a telescope. I remember my son got one year for Christmas from his aunt, and it was just a little tiny telescope, but we took it out on the back porch one day, and it was crazy. We could see not the sun, but the moon, and you could see some of the stuff on the moon, like little craters. We could see some stars closer. We even took it out in the daytime, and we looked in our backyard because our backyard's woods, and we could see like tree leaves really, really close up that were really far away. So it was kind of neat to look at it. Through careful study, astronomers have figured out many interesting facts about stars, even though no person is able to travel and study a star up close. So these are pictures of stars that have been made larger or magnified. Astronomers have learned that some stars are older than other stars. Some stars are hotter than others, and some appear red through the telescope. Here's the red one, while others appear blue. Stars change color depending on how hot they are, and how hot a star is depends on its age, size, and other factors. Now, here's a fun fact. Which one of these do you think is hotter, the red or the blue? Bet you didn't know it, but the blue star is actually hotter than the red star. Don't you just love science? But you don't need a telescope in order to appreciate the wonders of outer space. If you look at the sky long enough on any given night, you'll eventually see a meteor or a shooting star. A meteor is simply a rock that flies through space. It appears as a streak in the sky before it disappears in the blink of an eye. At first glance, a meteor may look like a star that is literally falling through the sky. However, stars do not move like that. Meteors, although they're sometimes called shooting stars, are not stars at all. So if you see a shooting star, what are you really seeing? A meteor. There are billions of meteors out there. Some meteors are quite large, but most are tiny, between the size of a grain of sand and a baseball. So when a rock is in space, all the broken pieces just kind of move around together because there isn't enough gravity for them to fall anywhere. Meteors are whizzing around all over the place in outer space. Occasionally, a meteor crashes towards Earth. Before it can hit Earth's surface, however, it crashes into Earth's atmosphere. For a space rock, hitting the Earth's atmosphere is like a person running into a brick wall, except the atmosphere doesn't stop the meteor. The meteor hits the atmosphere at an incredible speed and keeps moving through the atmosphere. As it does so, it generates intense heat. The meteor burns up as it enters the uppermost part of the Earth's atmosphere, creating a streak of light, or a shooting star, as some people call it. So if meteors hit Earth's atmosphere and burn up all the time, why do we only see them at night? Let's see if we can answer that question. Occasionally, bits and pieces of meteors survive their trip through the atmosphere and fall to Earth. This is rare, but it does happen from time to time, and it is possible to find pieces of them on the ground. When part of a meteor survives the trip through the atmosphere and lands on Earth, the meteor becomes a meteorite or space rock. That's what you're seeing on your screen. The meteorite in this picture is probably not the most exciting rock you've ever seen, but it's pretty amazing to think that it came from outer space. Sometimes by studying meteorites, scientists discover new types of rocks that do not even exist on Earth. Outer space is a strange and wonderful place. By studying the stars, planets, and other objects in space, astronomers have learned many things about this incredible place called the universe, of which we and our planet Earth are but a teeny tiny part. So the universe is everything in space. So planets, stars, and just space itself. It's all together. That's the universe. Feast your eyes on this massive star cluster. It's a group of stars. for a moment and imagine, if you can, the incredible number of stars and the incredible distance between us and them, and how much there is for us to learn about our universe. For instance, look at the very center photo. There in the middle is a little cluster of 14 bluish stars. Added together, astronomers estimate that these 14 stars combined are over 20,000 times larger than our sun. And remember, our sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than Earth, but this one is 20,000 times larger than our sun. So 20,000 of our suns, one of those. That's crazy. That's so huge, it's hard to think about. And that's just 14 stars out of all the stars in that photo. All right, friends, so let's talk about what we've learned today, because we've learned quite a bit. So, let's see. So when you look up at the stars at night, they look like they're blinking and they look tiny. Are stars really tiny, and are they really blinking? No, they're not tiny. They just look tiny because they're so far away. And they're not really blinking. The gases in our atmosphere cause them to look like they're twinkling. Sometimes stargazers use binoculars when they're looking up at stars. Astronomers have buildings that they go to in order to study the stars. What are those buildings called? An observatory. Do you remember what tool an astronomer uses to see the stars more clearly? Telescope. All right, why are some stars blue and some stars red? It's because they're hot. Some are hotter than others. So a blue star is hotter than a red star. All right, let's see. If you look up at the sky at night and you see a streak of light, sometimes we call that a shooting star. Is it really a star? No, what is it? A meteor, yeah. So what is a meteor? It's a rock that flies through space. And what happens when a meteor hits the Earth's atmosphere? It usually burns up. All right, friends, I'm going to go into Google Classroom and I want you to go answer the questions that I have for you, okay? Don't forget to turn them into me, and I'll see you guys on lesson 4. Bye, friends.